In all of automotive history, certain cars have stood out among others as true icons, representing the pinnacle of engineering, design, and performance. But among these legends, one car has been revered by enthusiasts and collectors alike as the epitome of automotive greatness. Born out of a desire for motorsport dominance and engineered with precision to dominate the racetrack and everyday traffic, this is the story of the legendary BMW E30 M3. It's hard to believe that before the 1980s, BMW's reputation in the touring car world was not one of success. They had lagged behind their competition, in particular Mercedes, and despite their pedigree from Formula 1 and the wealth of experience in their racing division, they could not enter a car in the German Touring Car Championship, the DTM, that could bring home the title. The sheer drive to dominate motorsports and compete against Mercedes and the rest of the DTM field led BMW down a path that will leave their name etched in history forever. A path that resulted in them designing and building the car which defined an era, broke boundaries, and cemented BMW as the center of touring car racing and motorsports. A car that is, to this day, still considered the best thing BMW ever produced. And nearly 40 years later, BMW arguably still hasn't been able to reach the pinnacle of heights this car has achieved. The E30 M3 was designed and built as a response to the growing popularity of touring car racing. BMW realized they needed to gain a competitive edge in motorsports, and their desire to dominate the Deutsche Tourenwagen-Meisterschaft or DTM racing series led them to develop something new. In 1985, BMW unveiled the E30 M3 at the Frankfurt Motor Show. There is no doubt that this marked the beginning of a new era in high-performance road cars, and is no exaggeration that this car changed the automotive industry forever. The design philosophy kept the requirements of Group A touring car racing front and center. The rule said that manufacturers had to produce a minimum of 5,000 road-legal versions of their race cars within 12 months for the vehicle to qualify for competition. BMW Motorsport GmbH, the company's racing division, which is now simply known as BMW M, took on the challenge of creating a street-legal version of the car they hoped would bring them on-track success. Unlike many homologation specials of the time, which were often compromised road cars rather than racing cars tweaked to make them road legal, the E30 M3 was a dual-purpose vehicle in every sense. The development process was a collaborative one involving a large team of talented engineers and designers, including Klaus Luther, who was responsible for the car's distinctive and aerodynamic body styling. This is the man responsible for the shape of a car that is still considered sexy even by today's standards. The process didn't take long, thanks mainly to BMW's extensive racing experience. They had the power of a whole motorsports division to pull from to get the job done. The engine, a high-revving S14 four-cylinder, was reportedly designed in just 2 weeks. The E30 M3 actually shared very little with its standard 3 Series counterpart, with only the hood and roof carried over from the original. Everything else was built from the ground up. The body in particular was heavily modified to improve the car's aerodynamics and to accommodate the wider wheels and tyres required for racing. Box-flared fenders, a raised trunk lid, and a now iconic rear wing were among the huge amount of changes made to improve the car's performance on the track compared to its standard manufacturer sibling. The C-pillar was also redesigned to be flatter and wider, improving aerodynamics. One of the other drastic changes was the raised boot lid, made of lightweight fiberglass reinforced plastic and elevated by approximately 40 mm. This modification, along with a flattened rear window, reduced lift forces and improved straight-line stability at high speeds. At the heart of everything was the purpose-built S14 four-cylinder engine. This high-power double-overhead cam power plant was a masterclass in engineering. It combined elements from several different BMW engines into a Frankenstein's monster of an engine ready for the track. The cylinder head was closely based on the BMW S38 six-cylinder engine, while the block was derived from the BMW M10 four-cylinder engine. The S14 engine had a huge 7,250 revs per minute redline, but the power outputs could be changed depending on the market and emissions regulations to make the car road legal wherever it was sold. Then there was the focus on aerodynamics and weight reduction. The car's body was modified with a front splitter, rear apron and side skirts to improve airflow, while the windshield was glued in to increase torsional rigidity. These choices reduced drag and improved handling. Lightweight materials were used throughout the car, including plastics for bumpers, side skirts and the boot lid. The suspension and drivetrain were also upgraded with a stiffer setup, improved brakes and a limited slip differential to handle the increased performance. It's hard to argue against this being a driver's car, and that was clearly evident in every aspect of the E30 M3's design, from the purpose-built engine all the way through to the race-inspired suspension and braking systems. This was a car that aimed to deliver exceptional performance, whether being driven on or off the track. The design was a winner, and the process was so smooth it could be easy to dismiss this car as one that would flatter to deceive, but could it deliver the on-track success BMW had built it for? In truth, it couldn't have performed better. The BMW E30 M3's racing success was nothing short of extraordinary. The car wasted no time in cementing its place in motorsport history and making BMW's reputation in competitive racing as high as it had ever been. Its utter dominance in various touring car championships around the world, along with its victories in endurance races and even rally events, showed how versatile and efficient the racing car BMW had built was. BMW then turned their eyes to the DTM, the championship that inspired the creation of this monster. BMW captured 2 titles with the M3 E30, claiming the trophies with Eric van der Poel, who won the championship in 1987, and Roberto Ravaglia securing the second title in 1989. These victories were even greater since they were at the expense of Mercedes-Benz and their 190E, rubbing it in their faces while leaving their name in a trail of dust behind them. If there's one rival BMW wanted to beat, you could bet your life it was Mercedes. Beyond the DTM, the M3 excelled in other touring car championships. Roberto Ravaglia clinched the inaugural World Touring Car Championship title in 1987, and the M3 achieved multiple victories in the European Touring Car Championship. In the British Touring Car Championship, the BTCC, James Weaver won the B-Class in 1988 and Will Hoy took the overall championship in 1991 driving the M3. The success even extended to Australia, where Jim Richards secured back-to-back titles in the Australian Touring Car Championship in 1987 and 1988. In Italy, the M3 dominated the Italian Touring Car Championship, winning 4 consecutive titles from 1987 to 1991. In France, Jean-Pierre Malcha won 3 consecutive titles from 1988 to 1990. It was safe to assume BMW had conquered the world of motorsports and was comfortably sitting on top of the food chain, with everyone else scrambling for a piece of the pie beneath them. It was practically impossible at this point to find a more dominant touring car. BMW had achieved even more than they could have hoped to, but it didn't stop at touring car racing. Endurance racing was also a place of great success, with 5 victories in the 24 Hours of Nürburgring and 4 wins in the Spa 24 Hours. Even in rally events, the M3 achieved a notable victory in the 1987 Tour de Corse with Bernard Bigger. The E30 solidified BMW dominance in the world of motorsports and established BMW as a touring car powerhouse, showcasing the company's engineering excellence and increased its brand prestige immensely. But it wasn't just on-track success the E30 was set on stopping at. The car also became an immediate commercial success. The E30 M3 was produced in several versions and special editions for the road, each one adding to its legendary status. BMW produced 4 main versions of the E30 M3 Coupe, the European non-catalyst and catalyst specs, each with 195 horsepower, a European catalyst spec with 215 horsepower, and the North American version. There were also limited editions like the Evolution 1, Evolution 2 and Sport Evolution, as well as several special editions with mainly cosmetic variations. A hand-assembled E30 M3 convertible was also produced, but only in limited numbers. The standard E30 M3 was a high-performance road car in every sense. It had a top speed of 146 miles per hour and a 0-60 of just 6.5 seconds. The M3's quick ratio steering rack offered precise control, and its upgraded brakes provided excellent stopping power. If you bought the road version, it still felt like you were driving a real track racing car. This immediately became a hit, and its first race design philosophy translated effectively over to road use. Not to mention it was still an aesthetically pleasing vehicle to look at that still gets heads turning if you're seen idling around the corner in one in 2024. Reviews of the time wrote endlessly about the M3's ability to combine everyday usability with race car-like performance, and its success in touring car racing was also the perfect advertisement, with many considering it the ultimate driver's car of its era. Sports Car International rated this car as the 6th best sports car of the 1980s. Automobile magazine included it in their 5 greatest drivers' cars of all time list, and every single magazine and article couldn't help but publish endless pages of praise to BMW for their boastful little baby. The E30 M3, without a shadow of a doubt, became a worldwide automotive icon. The commercial success laid a foundation that BMW would continue to build upon for decades, with future M3 generations and the wider M division becoming a leader in high-performance road cars, a reputation that lives on to this day. The original E30 M3 is still a coveted collector's item today, and if you want to get your hands on a piece of history, it might take a pretty penny, and maybe a couple of your most prized body parts, which to some is quite worth the trade. The E30 M3's value has skyrocketed in recent years, giving it the status of a highly sought-after collector's item. On average, you need to put down around $65,000, but rarer versions like the Sport Evolution go for as much as $170,000. When it launched in 1986, the BMW E30 M3 cost around $30,000, which was almost double the price of a regular E30. Accounting for inflation, the vehicle has probably held value, which is only the case with true gems of motoring history. The dramatic increase in value over the last few years is due to several factors, including limited production numbers, meaning there's an ever-decreasing number of well-maintained E30s on the market, a growing appreciation for analog driving experiences, and recognition of its historical significance in motorsport. Enthusiast gatherings like SIGFest celebrate the E30 M3, bringing together owners and admirers from around the world. Through events like this, a community of specialists has grown, dedicated to preserving and enhancing these vehicles. The E30 M3's boxy flares and aggressive stance still influence automotive design, and modern sports cars are often compared to the E30 M3 almost 40 years on. Its remarkable appearance and aesthetic has earned it universal recognition as a modern classic. The car's influence on subsequent M3 generations and BMW's overall performance philosophy has created a lasting legacy that few cars can match. Even BMW has struggled to match the original E30, even if they have developed generations of successors to the E30. The E30 M3 successors each came with their own unique features and technological advancements, evolving the M3 concept while attempting to maintain the original's driver-focused approach and success. The E36 M3 from '92 was a pretty extreme departure from its predecessor. It introduced a 6-cylinder engine, replacing the original 4-cylinder. It came in sedan and convertible body styles alongside the classic coupe. More refined and comfortable, this wasn't like the E30. This was a car aimed at a broader market. It did have more power, with 286 horsepower in early models, which was later increased to 321 horsepower. While the E36 M3 was more powerful and refined, some lovers of the E30 felt it lost some of the raw, race-bred character that the original had in droves. The E46 from 2000 continued the evolution. this time only available as a coupe and convertible, seemingly drifting back towards the car's roots. Powered this time by a naturally aspirated 3.2-litre inline-six engine. This design was much more aggressive, with wider fenders and unique front and rear fascias, trying to recapture the E30's appeal. On this version, the M Dynamic mode was introduced to the stability control, and an optional competition package which came with upgraded suspension and brakes was available. The E46 M3 was seen by many as a return to form, and was much more driver-focused than the E36 had been. From 2007 to 2013, BMW made the E90, 92 and 93 models, which are personally one of my favourites, along with every other kid who grew up with the Need for Speed series. These new additions marked a big change for the M3. The E90s came in sedan, coupe and convertible styles once again, but this was the first M3 to have a V8 engine. The coupe even had a carbon fibre roof to make it lighter. That 4-litre V8 engine produced a huge 414 horsepower. This was the most powerful M3 that BMW had produced. It was also the first M3 with a dual-clutch transmission, meaning it acted like a manual transmission but switched through the gears automatically. It also had an electronic damper control, which helped the car stay stable, and introduced the M-Drive system that allowed drivers to customize the car's settings. But of course, the purists didn't like the V8. It was just the same as the smaller, higher revving engines from M3's past. But even though, this car was the real deal on and off the track. It performed well, and while it wasn't quite as magical as the E30, it was a powerhouse in its own right. The evolution continued onto modern day, leading us to the prestigious F80 and G80 models, which are a far cry from the E30. They are more powerful and have a huge array of features, but fans of the original E30 M3 find little to love about this modern spaceship of a car that looks rather like a Decepticon waiting to transform into battle. The F80 M3 was the first turbocharged M3 to hit the market. Instead of a naturally aspirated engine, the turbocharger allowed for a little bit of the high revving magic to be restored. But this car was again larger and more complicated and feature-filled, things that those who are lucky enough to have driven the E30 can simply do without. The turbocharger also gave the car a less grounded feeling. The G80, which is even more powerful than its predecessors, introduced an all-new all-wheel drive to the M3 range. But the thing is, this is a modern car, bigger and more comfortable, with new design features like a larger front grille and all other new features that core M3 fans have all unanimously agreed to dislike accordingly for the most part. These changes make it heavier and less nimble, and in reality, the modern M3 is nothing like the car that changed the sports and road car world back in the late 1980s. Even though some people don't like these changes, the modern M3, M4 cars are still extremely popular and successful in their own right. They're fast and fun to drive, and they come crammed with much-loved quality-of-life features. It's a different world to the one the E30 blew away, and a different world needs a different car, or so it would seem. The BMW E30 M3 has earned its name as the greatest BMW of all time, a title it has earned through a combination of its exceptional driving experience, emotional connection with enthusiasts, and how perfectly it delivered a simple brief: make a car that performs on the racetrack and sells for the road. The E30 M3 status as BMW's greatest creation, due to its perfect balance of performance, practicality and racing pedigree, has created an emotional connection with all enthusiasts and casual drivers who feel the E30 M3 is a machine whose beauty and performance is unparalleled. The raw analog driving experience is something that many modern cars lack. The sound of the engine, the feel of the manual gearbox, and the direct steering feedback makes this car a thrill to drive, still almost 40 years since it hit the road. The E30 M3 will forever be known as one of the greatest things on four wheels BMW has ever produced, with a level of magic that BMW themselves have tried and failed to recreate ever since. And unlike most modern performance cars, and indeed the modern M3 range that try to be all things to all people, the E30 M3 was focused on one thing: delivering the best possible driving experience.